You know what they say, live like nobody else so that eventually you can live like nobody else.
You're listening to the Michigan Real Estate Investor Network podcast. Hashtag the network. We're coming to you today from the network studios inside Michigan Investment Title. Today's episode is 17, and it's brought to you by Precision Cut Tile and Marble.
Hey everybody, how you doing today? Jeff Shipp here. We're here with Michigan Real Estate Investor Network, hashtag the network. Hey, today we've got a great podcast coming at you. It looks like we're going to learn a lot of stuff, have a lot of fun. Got 4 guys on here that are going to tell you about some of their mistakes in life, and I'm sure there's a lot of them in this room, but we're going to figure it all out, and we're going to have a great time today, and we're going to try to help you along the way and get this all going. So why don't we start this off today, introducing everybody. Introduce yourself if you would, please.
Paul Jones.
What do you do, Paul? Tell us a little about what you're doing in business right now.
Okay, let me tell you a bit. So right now I'm wholesaling. Also, I'm a hard money lender. Also, I bring in investors. I get them return on deals. Working on that a lot with trying to get more duplexes, triplexes, quads in. So that's just pretty much what I do.
All right, beautiful.
Great. Dylan, how about you?
All right, so my name's Dylan Tanaka, also known as Metro Detroit's favorite real estate investor, and I've been investing since 2003. I've done everything from wholesales to new construction, multi-units. Currently, I'm focusing a lot on wholesaling, but one of my favorite things to do, of course, is to network with other like-minded Michigan real estate investors.
Paul,
Hi, my name's Paul Beets,
Beets.
and I invest in real estate.
And what kind of investing do you do in real
Buy and
estate?
hold.
Buy and hold.
I'm buy and hold.
All right.
No flips,
No flips.
no wholesaling, just buy and hold.
Okay. He's found his niche and he's staying in his niche.
Yep.
I get that. Well, you know what? Like I said, we're gonna talk a little bit more about it. We've got some old guys that's been here for a long time, real old guys, and we got some young kids. Paul Jones, he's a young guy, just started. Paul Beets hasn't been in it too long, and we got Dylan over there that's been in it since time of start. And we're going to find out about what they did and what's went right and what's went wrong. So let's get it going. Who are we going to start out with? Let's go with Dylan and find out what has went right and wrong.
All right, so I thought we're lucky enough to have Paul Jones on here with us. You know, he's a newer real estate investor, just graduated high school, which is super duper impressive that he's already in the business with us. So we thought, what a better subject to have than to talk about some of the problems that we've all had and some of the challenges we've had, because you can learn from other people. I always talk about avoiding landmines. I want to learn from when other people blow their legs off. I don't want to learn from me blowing my legs off. So Paul's going to get some awesome education today, and you guys should have have some fun watching this, because this is a roundtable podcast. So we're here to have fun. We're here to be a little bit more entertaining than just all facts, and kind of let our hair down a little bit and tell you a little bit about what's happened in our businesses. So I've really made two major mistakes. I talk about this a lot. So the first one that I made when I first started in real estate investing and was going to a lot of the networking events. I had a couple different partners. One of our agreements, I guess, was that we wouldn't do any regular real estate. So we wouldn't list houses for people. We would never represent them as buyer's agents, because it took away from our core business of buying and selling and rehabbing and building and all that stuff. So the mistake that I feel like we made to this day was a lot of those guys that I would sell houses to and girls I'd sell houses to, once they rehabbed them, they were calling somebody else to list them. Yeah. Now, half the time I helped them through the rehabs because that's just what I did. And now somebody else got all the glory and made, a free commission listing the house for them. Yeah. And if I go back in like 2006, I could have had a lot of clients built up. And by this point, I wouldn't have been doing a lot of that work, right? I could have had somebody working for me who dealt with these people to list those houses. So I thought that was kind of an unwise decision. But coming out as a new real estate investor, which I'd already been in the business about 5 years, but I was finally getting real traction. But instead of me going around and promising to do all this extra work, I kind of just gave it away. but it's really, really easy to list a fresh rehab, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very easy.
You know, all of us are in the business, and when you see a beautiful rehabbed house that gets listed for the right price, bam, it's sold right away.
Sells immediately.
So I could have made free money doing that, and I threw a lot of that away. And then around 2010/11, I went completely solo, and that's one of the things that I always offer my wholesale buyers is if they are going to buy the house for me, fix it and resell it, then I'm happy to list it for them. I give them a hefty discount compared to calling some agent who's going to list it for them. And the reason I do that is now I know when their deals are going to be done and when they want more. Plus, the more success I can help them have, the more houses they're going to buy. It's just a circle, right?
Yeah.
Because you want them to have success so they can buy more from me. And all of you guys also. And you guys, you know, we all want our buyers or people we do business with to have success because it just success breeds success.
Right.
So I would say that's the biggest operations mistake that I made for, talking to somebody younger here or newer in the business like you, Paul. Don't be afraid to do some of that stuff and don't listen to what everybody else says. Just because you're a real estate investor only doesn't mean that you can't make a $10,000 commission doing something, not to say easy, but just a little bit different. And then probably my worst deal that I ever did. This is a fun one. So I had someone who I met at a real estate group bring me a possible deal, and he wanted to partner on it. So when he brought it to me, the numbers, we'll just make up numbers. The seller wanted $600,000. This was an 8,000 square foot home in Bloomfield Hills on a golf course, walkout basement, just beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
The great room itself was like 40 by 40. So this was a top-notch property back in its day, built in the early 80s. So it needed to be brought back to its former glory. So he wanted me to come in and partner with him. And I told him, no, the only way I would do that is if we could get seller financing. And we needed to buy it for cheaper. So he goes back. And we went back and forth for probably 6 months. He kept going back to the seller who he was friends with. And they say that, you know, the harder something is to do, you want to run away from it, right? So finally, we ended up agreeing at $400,000 from $600, $50,000 down on a land contract for like 3, 4, 5 years. That didn't matter. And that was the deal, right? So we take control of the property. We give her $50,000 down. This was all done through title company, all done through attorneys. Everything was above board. We go through, we do all this work. All we did was paint and carpet, bring everything up to code. It was kind of like a wholesale, but a very high-end wholesale. At that time, I was doing a lot of big remodel rehabs. So I had the crew that could come in and rehab it if the buyer from us said, hey, we want 3, 4, 5 new bathrooms. I mean, this is what we're talking about. You know, they've got a 20 by 30 kitchen. It was ridiculous. So we didn't want to do that rehab because I don't want to figure out what someone who's going to pay 1.2 or 1.5 for a house wants. I don't know what they're going to want.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
Whole different
I wasn't afraid to do it, but I just thought, how can I pick their finishes? So we threw it out there at like $750,000. So we were in for 100 on top of our purchase price, right? So we were in for basically 500, but we were only in for 100 out of pocket because she was holding 400,000. So we went through a couple different buyers. Finally, we get one locked in. He happens to be an attorney, which you should, no offense, attorneys, but believe me, you don't want to deal with an attorney as a buyer. So we're about a week from closing. They were going to buy it for like $675. So again, we're sitting at $675. Take out $50,000 in junk even. We made $1.25 on a $100,000 investment in like 3 months. It was great. So a week or two before closing, we get all these crazy phone calls and lawsuits and this, that, and the other. The lady that we were buying it from hid the fact that she'd been sued for mold previously in the same property. And the genius attorney that he is did a bunch of digging, and he uncovered something that was buried. I don't know what it was. And my partner on the deal even got a home inspection. They found no mold. So she had lied to us on the seller disclosures. And so we basically had a lot of recourse to go after her. So we were starting up a suit. Our attorney figured out, and we pretty much found out the lady had absolutely no money. She was in a very bad position. She had some substance abuse issues, blah, blah, blah. So we ended up talking to a lot of different attorneys, and the best advice that we had was deed her the property back and walk away. Because the guy who wanted to buy it was going to smoke us also because he had all this diligence involved and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So we were able to get this attorney to understand we didn't know anything about it. and that it was this lady's fault and she lied to us on seller's disclosures. He doesn't care. He's still trying to sue us.
Yeah.
So we got him to shut his mouth. I gave him like $4,000. We ended up losing $100 on the property, deeded it back to her. It went into foreclosure. It sold for like $280,000 or something like that.
Oh,
and by this time, the mold had grown all over the house because the lady couldn't handle anything.
Oh, wow.
She couldn't even afford to have the heat and air conditioning on.
Yeah.
So this mold just started growing. We never saw it. It was in one back tiny little room in this basement. Again, it was a 4,000 square foot, 2 floors. So it was hard to find everything. Little room hidden underneath the steps that you couldn't get to. You almost had to go through like a crawl space to get into it. That's where the mold was hidden.
Really? And it just spread everywhere.
It just spread like wildfire. So that was a $50,000 seminar I went to, which is why when a deal's too hard to do, I walk away.
Yeah, that's actually, when you think about it, $50,000 is a lot of money to lose, but you could have lost a heck of a lot more in the process if you would have kept on going. That's definitely a good nugget to listen to, Paul.
Right.
Paul, listen. That's a good nugget to listen to. Sometimes you got to lose money to make money.
Yeah.
And that's what that was, because, you could have really been sued. Or if you guys even took on the rehab, then did everything, then that come up later.
What if we would have put $250 in rehab money in there, and then there's a still weird weird mold thing? And maybe this guy knew. Some attorneys who I know now, I won't mention their names. They think that this guy may have even known about it, or somehow maybe worked at the same firm that sued her in the first place, and he thinks this guy tried to just get in the way and cause problems.
Yeah, get in there and try to make some money, and that happens sometimes.
Sure
you don't know
does.
if you did or didn't, but it happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the good thing about it, think about it. If you would have went on ahead and did that and lost all that money like that too, I mean, you could be working at McDonald's right now. So it kind of worked out good. You backed out and
I'm
lost
loving
a little money. Yeah. Well, it's definitely good. What do you think you'd have did, Paul?
Honestly, don't know. I'm wondering how through the inspection. How didn't they catch it during the inspection?
Nothing against home inspectors, but I've bought and sold hundreds of properties, and I've had one home inspection ever, other than that one. It was the first house that I ever bought.
Yeah.
So they're not liable for anything but the fee that they charge you. And he didn't crawl his fat butt in that weird crawl space.
No.
So he didn't care.
No,
not to say he was a bad guy, but what did we pay him for? Because my partner paid him like $600-700 because it was a huge house.
Yeah, it's a big house.
He didn't catch the mold though. Had he caught it, it would have been a different story. We could have remediated it and dealt with it and then got the certificates and all that stuff.
Yeah, you could have got it out of it.
Why couldn't you have done that in order to get it sold?
We could.
I mean, what was it going to take? What was the cost? If you're going to lose $50,000, you do remediation. The lawyer stays on the hook for.
I brought the guy in. He wanted about $60,000 to remediate it. The attorney said he wouldn't accept it. He was moving forward with a suit against us.
He was looking to sue anyway.
My partner in the deal was very green in real estate, very new, and that's okay. But he completely freaked out and wouldn't answer my calls or anything.
Oh, he froze.
Well, I wanted to fight. I was ready to fight because she lied on the seller's disclosures.
Yeah.
So I don't care if it took 10 years for us to collect from her. I was going to go after her because when that house went into foreclosure, we still would have had the first right to purchase it because we had a land contract memorandum on it. And if we would have gotten in front of a judge, here's what the attorney said. With us as real estate investing guys, girls, or whatever, we're looked at as kind of almost in like a commercial sense. Even if we're buying residential, we're looked at as a business. You get in front of a judge, and the judge is going to tell you that this poor lady who's an alcoholic or drug addict and who's lost everything and she's done this, that, and the other, she's got to give you even more money because she lied to you. She's got nothing to give you.
Yeah.
So they're like, you're not going to squeeze anything out of this lady.
No.
And then what they actually found out somehow was she bought the house in her self-directed IRA, and then they caught her living there.
Oh.
So guess what the IRS did?
They probably cashed out her IRA.
Somebody's got to explain.
So she had to
this
pay
me.
tax on that, and then she was behind on taxes.
She had nothing.
Yeah.
She had nothing to pay anybody anywhere. So
she was in debt even to the government.
Right.
Oh my God.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So we were going to try to squeeze blood out of a rock or turnip, and what's the point? All the attorneys that we all know, they just said, take your licks and run and go make more money, because by the time this is done and you ever get paid, it's going to cost more money for me to represent you than it is just go flip some more houses.
Yeah, just move on.
Right.
Sometimes you got to take that beating and just move on. There's nothing you can do.
No.
I mean,
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
Right.
Very
this is an
good
8,000
truth.
square foot house in Bloomfield Hills. Stay in your lane. I wasn't in my lane.
No, because when you look at that, a lot of people I don't think understand that that is a whole different demographic of people. It's a whole different decorating style. You got to understand the style you have to put in there, what they're looking for. And a lot of people that do normal flips, they don't get that, because you go down and get a standard little, $3,000 to $5,000 stainless steel package. That's not even buying the fridge you got to put in a house like that.
No, you got $25,000 packages.
Package of appliances and that. And
that's
people
light.
don't get that.
Right.
Yeah, they just don't understand it. It's like, horrible.
So can you explain that self-directed IRA that you were talking about, how she got into it? What does that mean exactly?
So a self-directed IRA simply means that you can take pre-taxed or post-tax funds. It depends if it's a Roth or a traditional.
Right.
And then you can invest in real estate as long as you have a custodian that watches over that money for you. So what she did, this was pre-tax. So it was a traditional, say it was a 401k plan. She moved it to a traditional IRA.
Right.
She purchased the property in the name of that IRA. So say it's Dylan Tanaka IRA. And you cannot occupy that house. You can't live in there. You can't do any of the work.
Can't benefit.
Okay,
from
so
the
you can
funds.
strictly use it as an investment?
Only.
Yes, that's right.
Only as an
100%
investment.
as
Okay.
an investment. You can't even carry paint into the house. You're breaking
Right.
IRS code.
Okay.
So that's only for you. She bought it for $400. She resold it for $800. She spent $200 on the rehab. That other $200 extra goes into her IRA. She cannot, in her normal life, benefit from it until she pays income tax on it, or until she hits a certain age if it's a Roth.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother podcast, but we can break down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about it, but I just needed to break down.
Yeah.
But once you do that, then they come after you. They want to tax you and
Right.
close out your 401.
And if you're
done.
caught, even if you invested a small percentage of your IRA, they'll call the whole thing
due, yeah.
the whole thing, and then you'll pay tax. If just as an example, you use 100,000 of it and to buy and rehab this place, but you've got 500,000, you'll pay tax on all 500,000.
And
They'll
a
just say,
penalty.
hey, here's your money. You can have all your money, but you're going to pay tax on all
You're
that.
going to
And
pay,
that's-
32% income tax and a 10%
Salty.
penalty.
Yeah, salty.
Okay.
That's a beautiful life.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Paul, let's move to you. What have you messed up on?
What have I messed up on? So I actually just bought my mess up. I closed on it last night. So I've got a partner that I'm working with, and we just bought a property in Indianapolis that the numbers were really tight. So I think it started out that, we were going to cash flow just over $200, and the ROI was going to be like 15%. And it was like really tight. It just felt tight. And but I went under contract because it's in a really great area, and the appraisal, I thought it was going to appraise at 140. I appraised at 170.
Oh, wow.
And I'm buying it for 73. So it's a great, but it's not going to cash flow. And one of the things I missed in my own due diligence before I went under contract was it's in a floodplain, like a FEMA high risk floodplain area.
Oh.
And so when I added flood insurance into the deal, it doubled the amount of insurance required, and the cash flow basically disappeared. And so even now, with what I think is market rent, when I look at the deal, it's probably going to be like a negative $20 cash flow.
So negative $20 over just a simple oversight. Just you didn't. A lot of people don't think about flood insurance when you think.
Yeah,
they don't even look at it.
Yeah, when you look at a property, that's one of the things on due diligence that you got to do. And it's not. I don't think it's that difficult. You just maybe some experience there. That when you look at it on a map, right? How close is it to a river or a body of water? Or this place is actually it's wedged in between the White River and an old canal in Indianapolis.
Oh.
So like it's almost, I wouldn't say an island, but it's a strip of land in between these two, moving bodies of water. And so it's in a floodplain.
Yeah,
So
it's a floodplain. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So when you went and bought this, now a lot of people, Paul Beets here, he does a lot of his investing out of state. So his stuff is long distance. He spends a lot of time down there on them and knows the area because he's from there. But he does a lot of long distance. So on something like this, Paul, now you've took a beating on the cash flow aspects.
Yeah.
So what is your game plan, your exit strategy? How are you going to get out of this? What are you doing?
Well, my partner and I, before we went under contract, and then I realized it, right? So I was very straight with my partner. I said, look, we've got a non-refundable earnest money down, $2,500. And I said, we could walk away, right? Take the $2,500 hit. It's not Dylan's $50,000, but it's $2,500 hit, and just walk away.
Yeah.
And my partner's like, well, tell me more about this. So we talked quite a bit about it. When the appraisal came in, and it appraised a lot more than we expected. And so, like I said, we're buying it for 73. It appraised for 170. So we're, the gap there is about 100,000. So if we put 30 or 40 in it, we might be able to flip it for 10 or 15 a piece, right?
Okay.
And it's in an area where, I think, we could sell it fairly easily. So we're exploring one exit strategy in flipping it. And that's going to affect the rehab, right? We got to make sure that it's going to be a flip rehab rather than a rental rehab.
Right.
So actually next weekend I'm driving down there, and I've got a real estate agent. We're actually going to go look at some houses that are for sale in that area. And we're going to walk through them and look at what kind of furnishings they have at the price points that they're at.
Now, was this a duplex or a single?
This is a single.
This one's a
This
single.
is single,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So, but another thing is I did some research last night, and there's several Airbnbs in that area right there close to campus, Butler University.
Okay.
And so, we could get $1,500 to $1,700 a month using, Airbnb in it.
That's awful good too now. That's
yeah.
awful
So
good, too.
I mean, it'll be an infinite return on investment. And if we can get a higher amount of rent, then we can get the cash flow back up and maybe hold it for an Airbnb. And then I also was researching the possibility, because it's that close to a school campus, that we might be able to rent per room.
Yeah, that's a great way to really exploit, I guess you'd say, the where you can get higher rent returns and all that on your money. Yeah.
Yeah. So you do $500 a room, $1,500. If I was negative $200 in cash flow, then I'm back up there into my sweet spot where I like to be over $200 cash flow per month.
Yeah.
And so I'm still infinite return on investment, because we're in it for so much less than what it'll appraise at. And so a free $100 or $200 of cash flow per month, you can't beat that. So
well, the one good thing that you're saying though is I don't know, young Paul. We'll call him Young Paul. Yeah, we'll call him Young Paul. Young Paul here is some of the things that I caught out of that is, even though it went south, the deal went south, and you looked at it, what did he do? He started going at it and look, okay, how can I turn this around? The object's not to lose money, but you're going to lose money in this business sometime. Let's be realistic.
Right.
But he's trying to find out, what do I do to not lose money? How can I turn this around? What other exit strategies could I get? So my partner and I, because you got to protect your partner when you bring in a partner like that. Yeah. You got to protect them at all costs. Even if you got to lose money, you got to protect them because you brought them in.
They're looking to me for the expertise.
Yes.
Right. The reason why, this is the chiropractor that I'm working with. He's looking to me as the expert, right?
Yeah.
And so he's expecting me to not miss these kinds of things. But you also have to be straight with him, be upfront with him. So it's it was a mistake that I missed, but I think we're going to be able to turn it around and possibly now if the appraisal would have come back low.
Oh boy.
Oh man.
Then I would have strongly recommended that we just walk, take the $2,500 hit and walk
and move on. Yeah. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you just got to run the other way. It's like, okay, it's not worth the bigger loss down the road.
Yeah.
It's tough to do.
So one thing that I am interested in is that student housing. That's what you would call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because honestly, I feel like one thing Michigan isn't really seen as is like it's a lot of colleges around here.
Yeah,
huge.
Really. So I'm really looking in Southfield, Royal Oak for those student housing because I've just been hearing, because of course I'm young. I know I have young patrons who are also looking for housing, but they're not looking for the traditional, campus housing where it's $10,000,
Right.
$10,000 just for the semester, just for the year,
Yeah.
when they can pay $400 and stay with 3 other guys
Exactly.
in a
Yeah.
home. So,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's one route that I'm actually looking towards. That a bunch of people going in. That's why I'm so interested in duplexes, triplexes, because when there's other people in the situation, it makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
So that student housing, I really love that idea.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, think about the area around Oakland University.
Right.
So people who can afford to send their kids to Oakland University might have a little bit of money, right?
Yep.
They don't always want their almost teenage kids, just past teenage, living in their house anymore.
Yeah.
And there's some areas around the university. It doesn't have to be inside Rochester itself, but there's some areas close enough that are, say it's got to be 20-minute or less drive at least.
Yeah,
and you'd want it as close as possible, of course. But you got Auburn Hills right there. You got good parts of Pontiac.
Yeah.
You got some spots right there.
Right.
And you can make that work because there's not a lot of student housing at Oakland University.
Yeah.
No.
Whereas, you want to talk about like the community colleges, you're a lot less apt to get people to live right next to a community college
Yeah.
versus a university because
Right.
most folks are going to go somewhat close to home anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think student housing, if you find the right area, it's all math. You got to find the right density,
Right.
and that's it. And you don't have to do it here. You don't
No,
have to do it where
you can
where
do
you
it
live.
all over.
Right.
That's
Oh,
another
yeah.
one
That's
that's
the
like
thing is-
apartments or anything else. You can do that long distance.
It's really versatile.
Anything you want. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can really make it
Yeah.
happen.
Michigan State, there's nice areas close to Michigan State. I've got friends that their parents went and bought a property off market, and they rented it out to their son and some his friends,
Yeah.
and they made money off of the deal while their own son lived there.
Yeah, I know someone at Ann Arbor, Michigan,
Yeah.
who's doing that.
Hold on, that's a deal alert.
Is that the deal?
Deal
You guys
alert.
hear that? Somebody's getting a deal right now.
Yeah.
It's none of us. We're on here doing a podcast.
That,
Oh, it
that,
might be
that
one of
there's a
us.
tornado coming through, and there's going to be a deal after. There's gonna be something happening. That's a dang sure.
Right.
Something's
Storm
going on with
chasers,
that.
baby.
That's it.
Yeah.
No.
Heck yeah, it's all about it.
Yeah, I see there is a lot of money to be made in the student housing. So,
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Love
Yeah,
to
when
look at it.
you talk to some of them guys, I mean, there used to be a TV show years ago. The guy was pretty good, young guy, and actually, that's
You're
how
talking
he
about Gunsmoke?
I'm about that age, but I'm not going to bring that up. But actually, that's where he made his first foray into real estate, and he made all of his money was off student housing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it turned into flipping, buying tons of rentals.
Let me
and,
say
you
one
know,
more thing about that, too. Here's the great part about student housing. You can buy houses that are underwater and over leveraged.
Yeah.
Because now
Yeah.
you can, just like Airbnb, now you can rent them out for a lot more.
More. Yeah.
So you can buy lists of people who have a certain loan to value and debt to income and all other kinds of things. Now it's not a guarantee, but you can buy those marketing lists.
Yep.
You can go after houses that seem to be underwater but are in the perfect neighborhood or may have accidentally been built with 5 bedrooms.
Yeah.
Right.
There's new construction homes where, like where Paul lives, there's new construction homes in Macomb Township in Shelby that have 5 bedrooms, and it's weird because it's like one too many,
Yeah.
but they still offer those plans.
Yeah.
You might find a 5-bedroom house out there that's huge,
Mhm.
and I'm not talking about putting kids in basements. You have to be really careful when you're going to do student housing.
Right.
But you can buy something subject to, which is creative financing, and you got to know what you're doing when you're doing it. But there's some ways to pick up student housing out there that other investors
Not looking
can't
at.
buy.
Yeah, a lot of crazy
not looking
ways.
because
A lot
it's
of crazy
camouflaged. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love student housing.
Yeah.
They're actually, if you look into it, just to take that to another step, and a lot of guys do this in certain areas. I've even run into houses in Detroit where they're actually renting rooms,
Right. Yeah, I have
Yeah.
too.
and you can rent rooms, and they're charging them. Let's say the rent's $700 a month for the whole house, but they're charging these people $300 for a room, and you get 3 to 4 rooms. You end up by making more rent.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people doing a lot of creative stuff out there, and I think some of it might be trying to get out of situations like Paul was in, trying to figure out a deal that went south, or I'm over leveraged, like Dylan was just saying.
Right.
You take some of that, then there's sometimes people are just getting greedy, but there's a whole bunch of different stuff out there. You just got to look at it all, know, and
I feel like
once you get at it.
I feel like me personally, because I know so many ingoing college students and so many who are like not the tuition, but the housing, the boarding is just so much. Like, what's a cheaper way that I can do it?
Yeah.
And they come to me thinking that I know something. It's like, I don't know. But then as I'm really learning more, getting into real estate, seeing that, student housing is really a thing where you can charge $400 a month instead of $10,000 a semester.
Yep.
You know, it's just a whole different thing. You know, the only difference is, you know, maybe they're paying for groceries and stuff like that. But if you're in a house full of people, even if you do have your own stuff, it's just like,
It's
just
a
so
good
many
deal
opportunities.
for them, and it's a good deal for you.
Yeah, it's
Right.
a good
And
deal
for the parents,
everybody.
you know,
Yeah.
get the loans down. Just everything is so good.
Yeah, you got to leverage your network.
Right.
Even you at 18, this is not a joke. You have your own network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what I talked about being a real estate agent or broker at some point. If somebody wants to use you, use your services, don't say no to them. At 18,
It's
you
money.
know people who are going to move 3, 4, maybe 5 times in their life.
Right.
That's 2 transactions every single time.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that you're got to be the one there sticking a sign in the ground. But don't give that away if it's somebody that trusts you, that you can do business with, that you're comfortable with. Because like I said, I've given away hundreds of thousands of dollars in commissions because that wasn't the business model.
Right.
But it's not that hard of a business model to incorporate
No.
in what you're already doing.
It's another avenue, and it's more networking and more connections.
Right.
Think about it. They might, if you do them right and you sell their house or you list their house, you do whatever, they'll refer you their family or
Right.
their friends.
Yeah, that's one
And
thing.
then it's more money coming in. I mean, personally, myself, I don't want to be, I'm a licensed agent, but I don't want to be a real estate agent.
Right.
But you can do this on the side, like he's saying, because it's not that much work, and you can go on ahead
Yeah, I
and you
know.
can take it and you can make some money at it,
So
and
many
have a little
opportunities.
bit, a little bit going, and you can build a rapport with people.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah, and
meet
listen,
people.
the 2 dumbest guys at the table are the ones who have their licenses.
Yeah.
Jeff and I.
Yeah.
The 2 smartest guys don't.
Yeah.
So you see how easy it is to be a real estate agent?
The bar is low. Well, let's put it to you that way. It's real low. I only had to take the test once. It was super low. You got in there quick. It is easy. But no, I think that everybody should be an agent just to have the access.
Right.
You and I have talked a lot. Paul and I were texting last night about some
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
You never know, what the heck's going on about that. It's just, it makes sense to have access.
Well, and not to be a nerd, but in the state of Michigan, if you're going to do more than 5 transactions, there's always ways around things. But you really need to have a license, and it protects you. I've been licensed since 2009, even though I've been buying since 2003, and I use it as an advantage when I speak with people. I love buying houses from out-of-state sellers. Because the difference between me and some of the other newer people in this business is they're nervous. They don't have some of the experience. They don't have the connections. But when I speak to an out-of-state seller, I tell them, hey, listen, I'm going to buy your house cash. But just so you know, I have my broker's license. You can look me up in the state. I have an office. I try to seem a little bit more professional to them because if they compare me to someone else, which if they're out of state, what do they have to look at? Just what you've told them, what they can kind of Google about you. And then they see that and they're like, okay, so if young Paul is a real estate agent and he does something wrong on a contract, he's held to a higher standard than other people.
Right.
So you always use that to your advantage. And to have the weapon of the MLS behind you for buying and
Huge.
selling is absolutely huge.
Yeah, it is. It's huge. It'll take you, realistically, it could take you to a next level and you don't even realize it. A lot of people are like, you don't need it. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You
So
certainly do.
I argue with guys out of state, and there's different rules in every state, and I barely know the rules in Michigan. But in Michigan, there's no reason not to have a license. That's the way that I look at it.
Yeah. Some other states are a lot more strict on them
Sure,
and stuff like
sure.
that, and you hear. And there's actually even states that wholesale is against the law. So you better have your license so you can do different stuff.
Right.
Michigan, we can wholesale all you want. I mean, it's totally legal here to sign a contract.
Yeah.
But, there's other states where you literally can't. Luckily here. And when any of you other people listening out of the state, check your local laws and all that, and then you'll find out what you can do or can't do.
So honestly, one thing I see wholesaling getting regulated at some point in Michigan. Honestly,
Maybe. Define wholesaling.
Well,
You're talking about contract assignment?
Yeah.
You're talking about buying and reselling?
Yeah. Now,
Yeah, I mean, I would say
it already
kinda-
is regulated.
Do you see what? Yeah, but why can't you? I mean, you want to get like advanced. You make an offer on a property, you get it accepted in an LLC that doesn't own any other properties or done any other business. You can sell that LLC. You can sell the membership shares. They can't stop you. So what they're going to try to do is break into 2 or 3 different types of law at the same time, and they're not going to tell you that you can't ever assign a contract because I can get a contract. Paul's with GM. I can get a contract to deliver GM 9 million bolts for a penny a piece. I can assign that. I can bring it to someone who does factoring. There's a million different ways that those contracts work. They're never going to bust through that.
Right.
But what they're going to do is they're going to enforce that they're already enforcing this. If you are advertising to buy someone's house and there's absolutely no way you ever had a chance to, and you don't buy it and you break your contract with them, and all you were going to do is assign it, and they can prove that, which is really hard to prove. But if you've hurt 700 people in 1 year, they're going to come after you for that, whether you're licensed or not.
Right.
So that's where you have to be careful, is when you're dealing with the general public, if you do something wrong, you're always looked at as the bad guy, because we are in business. We're not just regular people trying to buy a house. And the judge is always going to at least lean their way than ours.
Well, they are. I mean, you know more than them. Let's be honest. But you should. If you're going to go into this business, you better know more than the average person. Yeah. But you got to watch that when it comes time so you don't get clipped.
Yep.
You know, because they will. And that's just part of the business.
You know, before we move to Jeff, I'd like to get Paul Beets' opinion, maybe, is to anybody new, Paul, whether it's to this Paul or to somebody else. What advice would you give as a you know, not new person, but someone who's only been in the business for 3, 4, 5 years now?
I know Paul's doing a lot of the right things. Before I got started, and I've not been at it for very long, I educated. So the fact that you're here is, you know, you're educating. I binge listen to podcasts. I know that that's something you do, and that I'm also reading a lot of books. So I think education is the most important thing about being in this business, and it's not a one and done thing. Like, well, 6 months of education, I'm done. It's a constant process of educating, and probably the only other thing that I add in there, and I know Dylan talked about it, is networking. Is, you know, hanging out with people that understand the business, that you can learn from, that can give you advice and bounce things off. You know, I tap into this network all the time. Last night I sent a text message to Tio and Jeff. I met with a young lady that was at RIA getting ready to buy a duplex off the land bank. And I didn't have access to MLS, but I knew people that did. And the reason why I knew people did is networking. Yeah. So, you know, education and networking, I think this is a people business, and it's so important to have a deep network of contacts and resources that you can rely on. That's my opinion. That's probably the best. But I know you're doing all those things, man. Yeah. So I think you're on the right path.
I would agree with that firsthand, because I remember the Macomb meeting was the very second meeting that I went to, and I got to talk to you. Yeah. And then I met Dylan, and I met Jeff that night too. Yep. And I remember, I think it was a couple of days after that, and then a few weeks following up, we ended up on the phone, you know, because I was asking you about rentals, and you ran me through some numbers, and that was really implanted in me. It's like, okay, the numbers are the key in real estate that you really need to know and understand.
Absolutely.
And then just being around Dylan, being around Jeff, you know, just learning. Yeah. I can say firsthand that is true. So especially on the learning curve. Hearing it firsthand.
Yeah. Let the other guys take the hit, especially a young guy like you. If that guy's took a hit before, you don't need to take it if you're hanging around. Right. He'll tell you. Right. Don't do that. You know, they'll be straight up with you. I mean, Dylan and I've talked before, and he's even told me, hey, no, man, no. Don't go down that path. You're gonna cry when you get done. You know? You'll be laying in a fetal position saying mommy and all that kind of stuff. Don't go there.
It's like being in a boxing match or MMA match or playing chess. And if you can, you know, Paul comes from a completely different place than I do in this business, but he's got a very educated stance right now, because he's newer, but he spent a lot of time learning what this is all about, because that's the way that his mind works. Mine's a little bit different. Yours is different. So is Jeff's. Yeah. But, you know, going back to networking and the network, the reason that we're here, you know, here at, you know, the network, hashtag like the real network, right? Yeah. Is you met these guys at a RIA event. You met me at a RIA event. And now, be it 6 months later, whatever, now, you know, you've done some cold calling for me. You've done some stuff with Jeff. Yeah. You've talked with Paul on the phone. Right. And, you know, what's next? And it's because we're all givers, and, you know, trying to help everybody.
Well, and then that was part of, really, you know, like Dylan was saying, that was part of why the network was really evolved, and why it came about, is to get a place where people can network, feel comfortable, and just constantly help one another. Because you know what? I don't care how many deals all of us sit here at the table do. we can't do them all. We don't have that much money.
Right.
You can line everybody up, and nobody's got.
We
that
can't
kind
afford
of
to
money.
buy one subdivision. The guys at this table with the money in our pockets or bank accounts.
Yeah.
No.
So why not share the lone wolf thing? You can do whatever you want. We're in America and we're all lucky.
Do whatever you want.
But guess what? It's a lot harder to run solo than if you run in a pack. And you don't have to have the pack mentality. But if you have a question, you can call me, and vice versa.
Yeah.
You know, we've got an open line of communication here between.
And that's
all of us.
and that's what works with the networking with people is the communication. It's been tremendous and been totally game changer for me. I've learned, the lone wolf standard, like Dylan was talking about.
Right.
You can do that. I've did it. I prefer to partner up and work with other people.
Yeah.
I understand my strengths, my weaknesses.
Right.
Find what yours are. Get that other person that highlights, compliments, and helps. Even if you two think the same, if you understand, okay, that's your role, this is my role, stay in your lane, how we talk, stay in your lane. You do your role, I do my role. You can do business together.
Right.
And that's all part of the networking. And, and I've met a lot of great people through it.
Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
I love meeting people.
Yeah. I mean, there's no sense being out on a date on Friday night at your age. No, go to a real estate.
Hang out with a bunch of real estate nerds.
Yeah, I hang out with a bunch of real estate guys.
People.
I could be out hanging out with a bunch of young guys and stuff, and I'm out hanging out with you guys.
No, you know what they say, live like nobody else so that eventually you can live like nobody else. And I think
Absolutely.
you mentioned you got rid of all your video game consoles. Man, I wish I would have done that a long time ago, because it's I'm nothing against video game consoles, but it's just how you want to spend your time. Do you want to spend your time in education and learning how you can make money and live on passive income, or do you want to play online and waste a lot of time?
You got rid of your video game consoles? Come on.
I know. 18 years old, man.
About a year ago, I got rid of all of them.
So basically, you have no friends no more. They all
I don't have any
abandoned
friends.
you.
Yeah,
Your age.
they are. Ever since I stopped hopping on like the 2K courts and all of that stuff.
Yeah, you're done.
I don't have any friends anymore.
He sold his
Paul who? We don't know no Paul.
he sold his video game consoles and he's going to buy a duplex.
I
with
doubled up on books and
There you go.
There you go.
gas for going to real estate meetings.
There you go. That's the way to do it right there.
Hey, Xbox come in handy for something, by golly. Good Lord. No, that's great though. But no, it's been a good thing for a lot of you guys.
Right.
And the network has helped a lot of us. It's going to help a lot of us out in the future.
Yep.
That's a big thing with us. It'll all work.
All right, Jeff.
So
it's
we
your
get to hear
turn,
about
man.
Jeff now.
Yeah.
Jeff ain't no Mabel.
About Jeff.
All right, listen. Yeah, cut our mics, zoom in on Jeff, and let's see what kind of problems he has.
Get lost in his eyes.
Really, you know what? Very few problems, I'll be honest. I've taken a different approach than a lot, but the biggest mistake I've made, and these guys know because some guys were sitting and waiting for me to get done so we could move forward with new projects, was doing the work yourself. If you're going to get in this game, I understand you got to do some of the work. It's so hard to get people out there to do stuff. And I'm talking about rehab work and stuff like that. Do not try to work on your own stuff.
Yep.
Do not do that. I have probably lost thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars tied up doing rehabs when I should have been out doing deals.
Weren't you just telling me that I could put down vinyl plank click together in a weekend?
Yes, you can.
Did
and I see you can still,
You just told me that, didn't you?
You can still do some work. There's nothing wrong. I know guys out there still doing some work, but they don't do the bulk of it. I mean, I did. If it was done, except for like the electrical and stuff like that, I don't touch that. But I did everything. Don't do that. It was stupid. I don't know how to say it's stupid. I lost a lot of money doing that. And that's the biggest mistake I've seen. It slowed me up to the point where it knocked me back a peg or two, but now I'm back at it where I should be. And it'll be all fine. You just keep going. You learn as you go. Made money. Everything was great. Still doing deals when I was doing them, but you're not doing the volume of deals.
Okay.
In real estate, a lot of times nowadays, because like you're talking about, the margins are tighter nowadays.
Yeah.
So you have to do more deals to get to your end goal where you're trying to get financially and so you can do what you want to do. And if, you got to do X amount of deals to get there or to get them so you can buy your rentals because, that's going into the rental things. And that's been my biggest mistake. Other than that, I've had fun with this. I've had a great journey.
You sold the house for full price, though.
I sold the house within 24 hours
maybe
for
even
full
maybe
price.
even
Wow.
$5,000 more than full price.
Yeah,
So,
That's
actually,
great.
it set the record in the neighborhood. Yeah, it set the
Wow.
record in the neighborhood, and it sold in 24 hours. It turned out great. It was well worth it, but if I did more deals, I could have made more money.
Right.
Yeah,
Let's be
right,
honest.
right,
You know, I could have did more in my life and not killed my old body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's hard on you, and that'd be the thing. The advice I give to anybody: you might have to do some of the work, especially when you're starting out. You got to do some.
you need to know how
you need
things work. Also in this
God,
market,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
the margins are tight. So it's okay if you're out there and you're painting ceilings one day. I mean,
that don't hurt.
For younger people and even just younger in the business.
Yeah.
You can't be totally hands off unless you are a very, very good project manager. Paul Beets, good project manager.
Yeah.
He went to school for that. He's got a master's degree for project management. So to paint a ceiling, he can outsource that, right?
Yeah.
But if you're just getting in and you're getting your hands dirty, and especially, if you're going to be doing business right here in town, you're going to be at those projects all the time. So if a guy tells you that it's $3,000 to paint ceilings and you believe him, it's big trouble.
because they'll take you.
Right.
They'll
Maybe
take
it's
you.
$300. So
Yeah.
you got to understand that because it will get you further. And, you're going to be doing all kinds of deals throughout in
Right.
your career.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you'll know. And believe me, like you're saying, if you know what you're doing and that guy tries to sell you a bill of goods, or you go on, because I've hired and fired quite a few of them. You go on, you're like, really? That's done? Because no, that's not
Right.
the right way to do it. Take a hike. You got to go.
All right.
And you'll know that. But if you don't know it, okay, I guess that's how it goes. And, you'll learn it all. You'll learn it all. Just,
Yep.
don't get bogged down.
Right. Okay.
Don't get bogged down. Nobody. And no, that was about it for me. I mean, that's my biggest.
Why don't we go around the
Mistake.
table and do golden nuggets then before we finish up? So we'll start with you.
The young guy.
So you're giving
Golden-
advice to
all right,
everybody
golden nuggets.
out there in real estate investment land. What's the one thing they should take away from this podcast?
Hang out with Dylan Tanaka.
No, don't hang out with Dylan. I mean, I've said it before. I always say it. I would just say is doing it, just really taking the time out of your day, putting deep work, some type of focus into it. I really feel like this is real estate as a whole is a marathon. It's not just a sprint. You don't get to where you want to be really fast. And I've learned that. Well, I kind of went into it with that mindset already, but you really learn it just, consistently calling, consistently doing whatever you're doing, either whether you're online, looking for deals, calling people, going to networking meetings. Either way, that takes time and you got to wait for it. So I would say having that patience, having to go in and really having the mindset of going through hard times and being able to go through that. So that's one thing I would say. Go in with the mindset of being ready to wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And that's coming from an 18-year-old.
That's scary.
yeah.
Patience.
It's like people don't realize that people think that it's like because I'm 18, I'm coming in like really just for the money. It's just like I know I'm waiting, and it's like I've always got the plan in my head, but it's just you gotta wait to put it certain things into motion, I guess.
Yeah.
You just gotta wait on that. So of course I'm doing what I need to do, taking the mindset, staying consistent just so I know what I'm doing consistently. But just waiting to strike with what I'm really intending to do.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Well, that's how you're going to succeed. You got the right mindset. I mean, mindset's the big thing, and you've got it. So that will get you there. So you can, like Paul was saying, you can live the life later that nobody else is going to.
Yeah, that's why I hang out with older guys all the time.
Yeah.
Listen, I was the youngest guy in the room all the time. When I went golfing, I was the 20 years younger than everybody.
Yeah.
I lost all my friends for sure by 30, by 25, 26, 27.
Yeah.
We just had different feel. And Nathan Ganane, who's a big part of our network.
Yeah.
And
I'm Nate's biggest fan.
there you go. He's got his own fan club.
Yeah.
But, Nate talks about it all the time when he hangs out with his friends. Nate's only, he's under 30. And it's hard because we want to talk about one thing, whether it's real estate or building business or, I don't care if it's our websites. It's always something related to business and building our businesses.
Yeah.
And to just talk about how the Lions are doing or the Tigers or whatever it is, it's hard sometimes to drag yourself back, or you go to a family event and it's just like,
Yeah.
Who does real estate?
Right. Who in here thinks like me?
Yeah.
Oops,
Right.
nobody.
No, literally.
Exactly.
That's really
So-
because I hang around it so much now. I really go to family meetups, go with friends, and it's like, who's ready to talk about real estate?
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to take that hat off and just be stupid, and
You gotta have fun. You're still gonna have fun in
Yeah.
life.
Got to have a balance.
But it's hard.
That's where you're going to find your private lenders.
There you go.
You got to talk.
Spoken from a true professional
Right.
about that. Yeah.
Yep.
Lord. All right.
No,
Move over to me.
Move
All right,
up
I'm going to
you.
show you guys my promo skills. So this is what I think to take away from this podcast. Golden nugget is getting a deep breath. Always be building your network.
Okay.
So the reason that we're here today, Michigan Real Estate Investor Network had hashtag the network, right? We're on a podcast, but there's 3 parts to our group, right? There's a Facebook group that's private. A lot of people aren't on there yet. By the time you're watching this, you might be on there. There's the podcast. So it's for learning, it's for teaching, it's for growing the network. And then there's also in-person groups and events, right? Things that we do. And for me, I think you've got to be a part of all 3. To build your network properly, you're going to meet people online that you aren't going to meet in person, because we might be selling houses to guys in California. We're not going to meet them in person.
No.
And we found them on let's just use the Facebook group. Then we've got the podcast. Paul Jones showed up at a RIA event 6 months ago. Now he's sitting on a podcast with us.
Yep.
So we're getting to know each other better. I know he's looking for duplexes, triplexes, quads. If he can get seller financing, I will wholesale him a house. I guarantee it, because I've wholesaled people houses in our network, and I'm going to do more of that, right?
Yeah.
And then talking about the in-person meetings, there's a huge difference meeting someone on Facebook and being belly to belly with them, and nose to nose, and talking and meeting each other and learning and getting to know each other. And that's how Paul met all of us. That's how all of us met. None of us met online. Paul Beets is big on Bigger Pockets. I've been on there since 07, 08. I'm on there all the time. I never saw him on there. But as soon as he moved back to Michigan and showed up at an event, bam, we became friends.
Yeah.
Same thing with Jeff. Jeff's all over the Facebook groups. We never talked on Facebook groups. He starts showing up to meetings. I thought he was funny. We'd stand next to each other and make jokes. And I'm like, who is this guy? Next thing you know, we're doing business together.
Yeah.
So inside the network itself, that's what this thing exists for. That's what it evolved from, is just being together and doing business. But make sure that you're doing that in all 3 facets of your own business, whether you're on, a big part of this network or just in general. You got to be online. You got to be doing stuff like this, getting uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And you got to be in person, meeting people and shaking hands.
You got to. If you want to succeed, nowadays you need to do all of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
You need to do all of them, and you need to find a group of like-minded people, a community of like-minded, and that's how you'll succeed.
Yeah. Shaking hands, really, not to be weird, but the first time I talked to Dylan, it was in the bathroom.
Whoa, this thing went sideways quick now. This thing went sideways quick now.
It was at the RIA meeting, he was just like, yeah, how are you feeling the meeting? I'm like, yeah, I like it.
Nice.
Okay.
Did we shake hands?
I don't know. I don't think so. I hope not.
I'm not going there right now.
The other golden nugget to take away is after you use the restroom,
Always
wash your hands.
Yeah, please.
Soap and water. Yeah.
Yeah, let's use some soap too. Lazy people up there.
Walk out
We
with the
just turn
napkin
on the
in
hot
your
water.
hand.
We just turn on the warm water.
Get some soap up in there. All right,
Mr.
Paul, how
Beets?
about you, buddy?
Make sure you check if it needs flood insurance or not. I think that's my golden nugget.
Diligence.
Diligence.
Do your due
That
diligence.
was, I bought five properties in Indianapolis. I'm going to close on 3 here in August. And before this one, I had never checked if it was in a floodplain. I had never even looked at that. So definitely, that's my golden nugget for today. Is when you're looking at deals, it's not that hard to go check to see if it's in a floodplain.
No.
So go do that because your insurance on the property will double, and if your numbers are tight, your cash flow will disappear.
That's a killer. And think about it now. Knowing Paul's a numbers guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so usually when he looks at something, it is down to the penny. And it's not like you can't miss something. Here's a guy that is very diligent. Believe me, I've been to his properties in Indy with him, and I see what he's doing down there. And I'm excited for him, and I've been excited when I'm down there because it's a great place. And it happens. But now it's a nugget he can pass on. Hopefully, like we're talking about, now you won't lose your left leg. You might lose part of your right, but you might not lose your left because of what he said. Yeah. You never know. It's all about that, just giving people a little bit of help.
Yep.
And that's it. So now on my turn, the last little nugget. Well, you know what? A lot of nuggets that people have been saying
Bring us home.
is what it's all really about. It's about the community. It's all about sharing. Don't have that greedy mindset. Have an abundance mindset, a sharing mindset, and you will succeed in this. If you don't, if you want to get greedy, you're going to make money. But you know what? You're not going to have a great life. Have an abundance mindset, have a sharing mindset, have a helper's attitude, have a very, gracious attitude, and be grateful to people and be humble. And you get around people and you're going to learn it. And I think that's what, that's the biggest draw that was for me, about people like I'm sitting with now and about with the network, the group that is formed and the big things coming out of it and what I've been able to do with it and the things coming. It's all because you're helping, you have the right attitude. If you go in with that mindset, you're going to make an impact on other people's lives, which in return will make an impact on your life. Right. And that's my biggest nugget is just go in with the right mindset and be humble and be helpful.
What's the mantra of the network? You didn't even let it out.
I'm not done yet. And share the love.
You've been listening to the Michigan Real Estate Investor Network podcast. Just call it the network. To subscribe to the show, go to www.michiganreinetwork.com, where you can have the show sent right to your inbox. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. If you'd like to be on a future show, there's a link on the site to submit your info. The network is 100% focused on the Michigan real estate investing community. Whether you're brand new or a grizzled vet, we want you to be a part and share the love.